Jiu-Jitsu has a lot of trends and metas, and it's of my opinion, as with a lot of other guys in the sport, that the next meta is going to be pinning people whilst you're passing, after you're sweeping them, and making sure that your takedowns follow into direct pins, as opposed to resetting to neutral territory and completely wasting your time. So if you want to learn how to pin your training partner very effectively and be up to date with the times, watch this video next. Enjoy. What are we actually looking to do when we're pinning somebody? I would suggest your highest priority is the hips. The hips are the biggest, strongest muscle of the body, even in Spewy's case, and they're going to present you the most problem. So what most people end up doing is they try and hunt for the head or the upper body. So they'll pass into side control, they'll knee cut out and around, and then they'll just go, there's the head and the shoulders, let me just attach onto that. And some of the time he beats you to an underhook, he sends you high, and then he gets behind you and you've failed to pin him. If you just took that away from this lesson and you just focused, instead of going upwards towards the upper body, the chest and the shoulders, you just fixated on these hips, you would be a better pinner already. Let's run that exact same situation. A knee cut into side control. I don't hunt the head, I don't hunt the shoulders or the chest. He does the exact same movement and I completely focus on the hips. I'm not even doing anything technical here. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm literally just trying to pin his hip down on the mat. Try and get up, Spewy. Do the exact same thing you did before. It's not a weight difference thing. Maybe it's a weight difference thing, but it's just a focal point of where I want you guys to focus. Instead of going the shoulders where you're going to get bumped off, he's going to gain underhooks. Even if he gains a shallow underhook on me and I'm fixated on only his hips, I take my head down over the top of his elbow because I want to be over his hips as much as possible. And then I start to lay my body weight down over this side. If he tries to lift me up, it's going to be extremely difficult because I've made this lever as long as possible. The higher my head goes, the better it is for him. So in that theory, the lower my head goes, the better it is for me. And so I want you guys just to fixate on that first when we're beginning in the lesson. The second best way to do that, or rather the best way to do that, is actually just claiming a half guard. So if we see the difference between side control, obviously I'm not covering his hips, I've got to make a concerted effort to go back down with my body weight. If I'm in half guard and Spewy tries to wrestle up from here, I'm in between his legs and I'm already pinning his hips to some degree as well. So I want you to consider that at the same time when you're passing. There are going to be situations where you get out to the side of his legs here and you can start to go down in towards side control if you like, but then you recognize that this guy's a little bit of a flight risk and he's going to wrestle up. You can easily start to step your way back down into half guard, false half, whatever you like. And now if he does try and wrestle up, you're already between his knees, you're between his legs, and he's going to find it extremely difficult to do so. So what I want you guys to do to start from side control, allow your partner to get a shallow underhook, and then feel what it's like when you hunt the head and shoulders. You think, oh, there's a crossface here. Okay, yep, I get bumped overhead every time. Then, instead of considering going for the shoulders or the chest or the hips, just concern yourself with taking your body weight as low down the chain as possible, covering his hips as best as possible. I don't care if you stay on your knees. I don't care if you drop your hip. Now get Spewy to do, or your Spewy, to do the same thing underneath you, and you'll experience how difficult it is for them as the bottom player to go absolutely nowhere while they're exhausting themselves. And if we can do that over a long period of time, he's going to be very tired. I'm not doing anything on top, really, and I'm going to get better breakthroughs over a long period of time. The first layer of what we're doing here is making sure that we're pinning the hips effectively and we're choosing them disproportionately over the time that we choose the shoulders. There are situations where I would choose to pin the shoulders as opposed to the hips, but 90% of the time I would say I'm choosing to focus on pinning the hips instead because they're much bigger, they're much stronger, they're much more dangerous for changing the position for me. The second thing I want you guys to think about is how taking limbs off the floor can start to benefit you and hinder him. So if Spewy wants to wrestle up in a situation, what he has to do is he has to prop on his elbow and then, start to build height. If I simply just take that limb off the floor by a tricep tie or tricep grip, however you want to call it, prop up. No, seriously, prop up. Yeah, exactly. So now he can get to this situation, but he's laboring to do this versus when his elbow's on the ground, he's in a much more structural and stable position. Now, yes, obviously this gives me near side underhook capabilities, but I want you guys to play with the idea of simply taking limbs off the floor. He's now using his ab musculature here to stay upwards. I can just keep him in this position. He's not able to generate a ton of force here. I'm splitting his legs, I'm pinning his hips, and I'm not rushing the upper body. And I've actually taken away one of his grips or one of his posts rather, at the upper body. So if he tries to generate force into me here by trying to knock me over, it's actually extremely difficult. And I can kind of ride his hips here and just focus on how I'm pinning. I can start to go tight waist on the far side. I can lay him flat here. Once I do so, and I've taken elbows off the floor, I can start to come into thinking about cross faces and then turning his head away, turning his hips away from me, and then I can start to pass. So if you're in situations like this where they're propping up, don't just dive in, especially don't dive for cross faces. He'll bump this off the top of your head and then he'll start to come out the back. Think about taking limbs off the floor, whatever he's using to post, and then starting to take that away from him. When you do this, he's using musculature to stay up and trying to fight here, while I'm not really doing anything at all. And I can start to lay over his far shoulder. I can start to pin him down towards the mat. When I've taken that elbow out of the way and he's not going to come back up, now I can start to cross face him, come in, turn his hips and turn his shoulders away or his chin away so he can't re-guard to the inside. The same concept is going to be true at the lower body. So if he's bridging into me and he's trying to wrestle up at this stage, exactly right. If I just start to take his limbs off the floor, turn into me, wrestle up, turn into me, wrestle up, it's extremely difficult. If I take that away, turn into me, wrestle up, you can see the difference. Now I do have the elbow availability here if I haven't gone towards the hip, but it kind of breaks my rule. I could theoretically take this out and he can still whip up to his hips. Yeah, exactly. He can still start to create a little bit of disconnect for me. Versus if I just focus on taking this off the ground, it doesn't even matter whether you take an overwrap or a scoop. I can just continually run his hips down towards the floor. Try and wrestle up, really. I can split his legs, run his hips down towards the floor, and then I can come back, take his tricep off the ground and start to pin him again. So again, you're focusing on the hips 9 out of 10 times, but if you do have a limb that's on the floor, whether it's a foot or an elbow in front of you, take that off the ground and see how it destroys their ability to start to wrestle up on you. You get into a knee cut situation, maybe you're split squatting, and you get your knee down towards the mat. And essentially what's going to happen is that he's going to punch an underhook, he's going to go into things like lower leg shifts and all that jazz. And what you see most beginners falsely assume is the correct thing to do is like dive on front headlocks like this and twist themselves up, and they think that darces are here. But even if you're really flexible at the hip, trying to get into this situation to finish a darce is really quite shit. And I don't recommend that you do it. If you could get your knee towards the top hip and you want to go into arming guillotines, let's look at what that would look like. In this situation, yeah, okay, this is warranted because you've actually got him between your knees at this stage. If I don't have an arming guillotine where he's between my knees, he'll be on the side of me and it'll be a very shit arming guillotine because I won't be able to crunch his head and I won't get the finish. But if he's between my knees, I'm in a much better spot. But me putting my knee on the top hip is giving you guys an idea of what we're realigning our focus, going back towards focusing on the hips and not focusing on the upper body. It's obvious that there's a darce here. It's obvious there's an arming guillotine here, but I don't want you to take that bait because it'll end up in worse positions for you than it will for him, right? So that makes sense. So we'll get into a low leg shift situation. We've got 2 options from here and we're focusing both of our options on the hips. So what I'm going to do immediately, if I can, if he's got poor tension in the side of my knee, I'm going to start to externally rotate my knee, widen, and then take it over his top hip. Once I do that, I'm going to cup his tricep, pull it up to the ceiling and take it from being able to be I'm going to pull this arm up off the floor so when he tries to post on the other arm, it's actually quite difficult. So I can keep my weight all the way over his far shoulder. If I don't do this, I can still start to pull this elbow, but I'm a little bit too far away for my liking with my hip contact. He can start to bring this knee through the bottom and give me a little bit of problems with re-guarding. Whereas if I focus all the way on being up over this direction, now if he tries to re-guard, my knee's beating him and he can't just put his knee through my hips. It's not going to work. And I can start to run his hips down and start to settle in over in this direction. The second option, if he's doing a good job at the lower leg shift and I can't widen my knee, what I'm going to elect to do is post my hands and start to create this big looping back step. I want to take my leg all the way back over the other side of his body so I can start to reach down and claim his bottom knee, pulling that up off the mat. Now what this does is the same theory as what we were speaking about beforehand. If his legs are off the ground, he tries to wrestle up in this situation, like it's extremely difficult. He wouldn't be doing that because I've already flanked him anyway, but it fulfills the purpose of what we're trying to do for today's lesson. Once I get his knees pointed towards the ceiling, there's absolutely no way he's getting off his back. I've beaten him from wrestling up in this situation. And what I'm going to start to do is put my knee down on the floor on the other side, claim his hips into a 3/4 mount. And now when he tries to wrestle up or he tries to get out of here, I'm covering his hips so well, I'm sitting on top of his knees so well that he's not able to generate any useful momentum from this position. The only thing he can do is prop an elbow, of which I'm going to take away. Props an elbow, take it away. What else do you want to do from here? Yeah, maybe re-guard. Yeah, exactly. But if we get him thinking that his only option is re-guarding, he's not wrestling up and we've pinned him effectively. So we get to our lower leg shift situation. He does a poor job at putting tension in the side of my knee. I would always test this. I don't want you to run into this where you're hurting the side of your knee. I wouldn't let him set it correctly and then just bang the side of my knee and just destroy my own ligaments. But I'll always test if I can get my knee up towards the top hip off the floor. I'll carry my second knee down towards the pocket of his hip. I'll take his tricep up in the air, then I'll run his hips flat. Now I'm over the top of him. I've covered his hips. I've prevented him from putting posts on the mat, which will stop him from getting up, and I've won that battle. If he does a great job at putting tension in the side of my knee, and I can't do that, I feel like I'm going to load my knee up, okay, no problem. I forego the tricep grip, I take this big looping back step over the top, and then I start to look for his knee coming off of the floor. In this situation, I'm covering his hips, I've got his limbs off the floor, he's not going to get up. I start to take his hips over the other side, put them between my legs, and now when I'm in this position sitting over the top of his knees here, he can do anything he likes to try and generate some momentum here. It's extremely difficult. He might try and go knee elbow, but he's in a very difficult spot, and I'm going to win this battle of pinning him versus him wrestling up on me. Focusing on the hips and keeping limbs off the floor makes the most sense to me is when we sweep somebody from an Ashigarami. Get into a Rumiashi, we start to put him down. Now, I immediately want to come up and start to pin this guy, but what most people forego is the fact that if his feet touch the floor, he can get up. If his feet don't touch the floor, he can't get up. And what you end up seeing, you see this a lot in beginners classes, they just let go and they go, oh, the torso's there, and exactly, and then it's gone. What I want you guys to really hyper focus on, if it's just one or if it's both is preferable, one is good, both is better. Taking both heels and disallowing them from touching the floor at all costs. If I take his heels much higher than the level of his hip, he will not be able to stand. If his heels are below his hips, he can stand up. If his heels are above his hips, he can fucking spaz around as much as he wants, but he's not going to get up. The only situation that he can create a dynamic movement with his heels above his hips in the air like this is if he exposes his back, which is what I want. I can start to climb the legs, and now I'm in a great position. Yes, I didn't follow the rule set of pinning him on the floor, but I forced him into making a mistake that was advantageous to me, as opposed to just simply letting these go, standing up into a neutral position. I sit back into guard to try and sweep him again, and I've wasted all that energy for nothing. You want to limit the amount of energy you waste in a round, in a match, as much as humanly possible. And by doing that, the way that you do that rather is by linking things together in neat little piles. So once I sweep him down, my whole focus is how do I pin his hips? The best way to pin his hips from this situation is keep his heels above them. If he tries to stand from here and he tries to get up, it's extremely difficult. Even just with one leg, it's extremely, you can see he gets a little bit more leeway. If he gets one leg there, I can start to expose his back. 2 heels is preferable, 1 is good, 0 shit, never take 0. Let's give that last one a go and then we'll wrestle. Now what? Now what? Sounds like a tap to me.